Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. How's everybody doing tonight? Lots of exciting football to talk about from last week. We'll talk about the key games, the key plays that got us to where we are this week. Conference tournament championships. Boy, conference championship games. Rivalry weekend last weekend. We'll talk about a lot of that. We'll get into some of the coaching news around, obviously. We'll look at this week's revised college playoff rankings and also some other news around football. We'll look at all the college coaching openings and such. And we'll review each one of the championship games this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. Still 7 teams alive. Well, 6 teams. Can't really count Ohio State. I know Ohio State only fell to 5, but it really doesn't matter. They don't have a path to the championship game. They just don't. I want to welcome everybody watching tonight on TGI Sports Talk, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. Everybody on Let's Talk Sports on YouTube. Lots of great content on Let's Talk Sports. I always talk about Tanner D doing a great job over there, replacing our man Dan Harris. Thumbs up, DDH. And, of course, Nick Bodkin, Scott Cote, Alan Perales. I'm going to forget, guys. Rob, Logan. I know I'm going to forget other guys, so I shouldn't even start, right? Northeast Streaming Sports. Welcome you, all of you watching us tonight on YouTube or Facebook. And you can see us for Saturday morning. We'll replay this show on the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku app. Make sure you get there and download that. Hey guys, it's free now. Don't know how long it will be because the downloads are going hot and heavy there. So lots of good stuff going on, lots of good stuff. And we welcome you wherever you watch us. Quick programming note, which I'll jump on again later. Next week's show will not be live on Wednesday. I'm traveling for work all week. I'll be gone Monday until Friday night late. But I'm going to get up and do the show live Saturday morning. So that 9 o'clock show on all of these outlets I just mentioned, plus the Roku channel for Northeast Streaming Sports, will be live that morning instead of taped. That show is. So also shout out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media, doing a great job. Ralph, he's based in Pittsburgh, does a lot of sports from Pittsburgh, but also has a nationwide presence as well. But a quick shout out to him and Smokin' Jim Frazier, who do the Sports Corner every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on WBVP 1230 a.m. and 99.3 FM. And I try to share that show whenever I can make sure to do it, remember to do it. But Ralph's doing some good stuff over there. So welcome, everybody. What's the big stories? Bama survives a crazy game last week. We're going to get into each one of these games briefly or as deep as we need to. Your comments and topics are certainly always welcome here at TGI Sports Talk shows, including this one, especially this one. Bama survives with a crazy third and forever touchdown to save their season. Michigan outlasts OSU. Ryan Day is now in the exact same spot, I would say, that Jim Harbaugh was in a few years back. Can't beat Michigan. He's going to start feeling the heat. He's going to be asked to make coaching changes. He's going to be asked to take a reduction in salary, or he's going to probably be looking to get out of town. Watch out for Jim. I said this last year. If Ryan Day doesn't start to beat Michigan, Ryan Day may very well up in the NFL. FSU survives without Travis Jordan. They beat a bad Florida team, but you know what? They found a way to win, so let's not penalize them. They moved back in the top 4 this week. If they struggle and still beat Louisville, they have got to be in the Final Four. You cannot take a 13-0 major conference champion and move them out of a spot for a one-loss team if that should line up that way because of injury. Oregon rolls. Washington survives again. Oregon playing Oregon State. Washington playing Washington State in big rivalry games. FSU, in all fairness, was a big rivalry game as well as obviously Michigan, Ohio State, Bama, and Auburn. These rivalry games, guys, very, very competitive. The records really don't mean a lot when we get into these games. Let's look at the top 20 from last week. Who we got here? There's Augustine reaching up those Ducks. You win Saturday, you're in, Augustine. We're going to get into next week's games in a minute. We'll talk about the Heisman Trophy. Right now, I think it's Bo Nix and Jalen Daniels. I think Michael Penix has played himself out of the race. We'll find out soon. The finalists will be announced. I think the votes have to be in by, I want to say, this Friday. Or maybe it's this Saturday night. Excuse me. Looking at the some of these rival games and top 25. We'll start in the top 25. Ole Miss beats Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl. Not an exciting game. Ole Miss wins gets their 10th win for, I believe, only the second time in their school history. Some very storied seasons for Ole Miss, but only won 10 games a couple of times. Mississippi State is a mess, fired their coach. We'll talk a little bit about their coaching situation in a minute. Oregon rolls over Oregon State. Oregon State's falling apart. Their coach, Johnson, left for Michigan State this week, so that job is now wide open. Jonathan Smith, not Johnson. Jonathan Smith leaves for the Michigan State job. We'll see how that works out for him. So Oregon State's looking for a new coach. I don't have word on whether he'll be coaching. I'm sure he'll be coaching. I shouldn't say. I'm sure. I should never say I'm sure. These coaches, they up and leave, and they leave the kids on alert for a bowl game. We'll see how that goes. Who we got here? All things football from a lady's perspective. Good evening. How are you? First time with our show here on the College Football Huddle, I believe, but it's great to have you with us tonight. Any topics you want to jump out, don't hesitate to bring it up. Where was I? Anyway, Texas plays Texas Tech. Texas gets some style points over Texas Tech, and we got to see Arch Manning play a lot of it. They played very well in this game. Cam Ewers will probably, I don't think they're going to change their starting quarterback at this point with 11 wins, 11-1 record going into the championship matchup against Oklahoma State. Texas has been hurt recently. If we get into a matchup, where they come up and it's just them and Bama, or Bama and another team. Heck was that? Oh, hang on, I got something playing here. Always something coming up. Hang on one second. I got rid of that. All right, so Texas, they're through some fault of their own. Close games against Kansas State, TCU, games that they kept teams, let them hang around. And some of the teams that they beat or got beaten by, Oklahoma, for one, Alabama helps them, I guess, in the other regard, because they got better as the season went on. But some of these teams that they played and lost to, Oklahoma State, who they play in the championship game, them getting killed by UCF a couple weeks ago. These are factors that will hurt Texas if we come into a, one-on-one matchup. To me, if it's just Bama and Texas, I'm pissed off if they take Bama. But if it becomes, a 2 or 3 team, a 3 or 4 team, you have the right factors happen, right? But if it comes down to 3 or 4 teams with one loss and they're all conference champions, actually Georgia might even come into the equation then. But Texas, again, nobody to fault but themselves for losing to a not so good, it turns out, Oklahoma team. They're good. Rick, good evening. Good. How are you, buddy? I cough and then I hit the cough button. Brilliant, Keith. Rick, I'm still on Georgia, three-peat. So a lot of the things we talk about here are going to be, hypotheticals. Again, before our resident SEC elitist, John DeLon, shows up. Good evening, Anthony. Good to have you with us. You did call the poll. You called the AP poll right. Look at the polls, and they still don't even matter right now. Like I said, Ohio State being 5, it doesn't matter. They got no shot to get in. They're going to get passed this week by any of those one-loss teams behind them that win a conference championship are all going to pass them. Oregon wins, they're going to pass them. Alabama wins, they're going to pass them. So Texas wins, they're going to pass them. So where they put Ohio State this week was really, when you think about it, irrelevant. So, what else? Oh, crap. I'm having a bad night tonight. I just lost my scoreboard. Here we go. All right. So the other matchups in the top 25, Missouri just rolls over Arkansas 48-14. Big news this week was Bobby Petrino returning to Arkansas. Sam Pittman, who was retained, has hired Bobby Petrino to, I don't know if he hired him, but he was hired to be the offensive coordinator at Arkansas, where he coached previously. And if you remember, it was a disaster and it didn't end well. Anthony, what do you got here for everybody? You think if Texas wins Oklahoma, I think if Texas wins, Oklahoma State will be out of the top 25? Let me see where they are right now. I think you mean Oklahoma State, right? Because Oklahoma State is playing. Now, I doubt it. Because you got to remember, too, something else. So nobody's playing behind them. North Carolina State, Oregon State, Tennessee, Tulane. Well, Tulane's playing. Clemson, they can move up. The other teams can't improve their lot. So if it's a close game, I do not think Oklahoma State drops out of the top 25. I think they remain, whatever, at 20, 22, whatever. Some other games. Penn State beats Michigan State. We didn't think that'd be a problem. Oklahoma, getting right late, 69-45 over TCU. A lot of defense played in that game, obviously. Iowa and Nebraska, 13-10. Another barn burner for Iowa. But they are 10-2 and playing in the championship game of the Big Ten, where they're going to be sacrificed to the Lions here, or the Wolverines in this case. Tulane in a close game until, for most of the game, I think it was a close game. It was a one-score game much of the game. UTSA played pretty well, I thought, in their first go-around. I thought Traylor might be a guy A&M would go after. We now know Mark Stoops turned the job down at A&M, and Mike Elko, the former defensive coordinator there, who has done a good job at Duke, will be taking that job. But a good first year in the American Conference, 7-1 in conference for Traylor and Texas San Antonio. They lose to Tulane, and Tulane will play SMU in the championship game this weekend. Notre Dame wraps up. Listen, 9-3. It's not an awful season. If things might have been different if they hadn't lost Ohio State in a tough way. This team may not have lost that game to Clemson. I know a lot of disappointment in Sam Hartman this year. Interesting comments from Dave Clawson, his former coach at Wake Forest, last week during Senior Day. They were singing "I'll Always Love You" to Sam Hartman, and Clawson didn't quite understand that. He said, "He's been there 5 minutes. We're the one who brought him up. We're the one who dated him. We're the one who made him the man that he is today. We should always love him." So interesting. Anyway, Georgia in a game that wasn't really as close. I think Georgia Tech scored some points late, but Tech played as well as can be expected. They played much better this year under their new coach, but they get beat by Georgia 31-23. We already talked. Michigan and Ohio State 30-24. Ohio State's in this game even on the last drive, and McCord throws a bad interception late in the game. But Michigan showed again on that last drive they had before giving the ball back. They kicked the field goal, but they took about 7.5 minutes off the clock. This is what you need to do. Major college football, the NFL, high school, you need to be able to pound the ball when you need to. Now, I will say that Michigan got a huge break on this drive. I keep saying this, and again, you know me, you can't let yourself get beat by penalties. I can call out penalties, though. Awful call. I believe it was 3rd and 4. And they would have had to punt, most likely. But Johnson, the receiver for Michigan, had the most blatant pass interference I've seen in ages. I mean, he didn't just extend his arm when he pushed this guy off. He pushed him back about 5 yards. Michigan gets a first down on that pass play and then proceed to run another 3 or 4 minutes off the clock. Now, who's to say they wouldn't convert it 3rd and long? But that was a tough play. But again, Ryan Day can't. Now Ryan Day is basically where Jim Harbaugh was a couple of years ago. Interesting. We talked about Washington State. Washington State had not been playing well, had lost a bunch of games in a row after a great start. Only 2-7 in the Pac-10 now. They just fall to Washington 24-21. Washington has found ways to win games, and at the end of the day, you are what your record says you are, which is 12-0 and 4th in the country. Or 3rd in the country, maybe now. But this team's going to have a tough go of it against Oregon. Oregon's like a 9.5-point favorite in this game on a neutral field after losing to Washington 2 months ago. Is it that long ago? I can't believe it's that long ago. We talked about Florida State. Gutty performance by Rodemaker. Their fifth-year senior in a tough spot. Didn't play great, but this team comes out and wins. Their defense was really good, especially when it had to be. I think they played really well in all phases of the game. They ran the ball well. Florida State will have a tough game against Louisville. Bad loss for Louisville against Kentucky this week, by the way. But great win for Florida State here. Alabama, we talked about it. Auburn had them on the ropes. 3rd and 36, I believe, or 4th and 36, sorry. And they scored a touchdown to tie the game. And end up winning this game late over Auburn. So tremendous job. Actually, I think that was the pass that put in my head now that I think about it. So Milroe, again, great game. Milroe has gotten better and better. We talked about Alabama, Georgia, and Beck getting better. Alabama and Milroe have gotten better. Milroe throws for 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, runs for 107. He is maturing before our eyes. This Auburn and Georgia game is going to be a great game on Saturday. Kentucky, as I said, comes back. They were down early in this game, but they come back and win 38-31 over Louisville. Not a good loss for Louisville. Louisville would have had an outside chance at a playoff berth. I mean, a million things would have had to happen, but they had an outside shot. LSU rolls over Texas A&M. They now have a new head coach, as we talked about. Mike Elko will take over for the fired Jimbo Fisher. The rumors had been Mark Stoops. I thought Dan Campbell would get serious consideration, but we were told by our man in Detroit last Sunday that he had turned the job down. So Mike Elko may very well be the third choice for this job. Former Texas A&M defensive coordinator, so he knows the landscape there. Arizona rolling, man. If Oregon had lost, they'd have been in the Pac-10 championship, Pac-12 championship game, excuse me. They rolled over their arch rival, Arizona State, 59-23. Iowa State wins a barn burner against Kansas State, 42-35. That game was played in a good old-fashioned snowstorm, which is always fun to watch. Maybe not fun to play, fun to watch. Oklahoma State in overtime, sneaks one out against BYU and gets themselves into that Big 12 championship game. Not a good first year for BYU in the Big 12 at 2-7. Not a good year for any of those first-year teams. UCF was probably the best of them. Cincinnati was bad. Houston was bad. They fired their coach, Dana Holgorsen this week as well, which we'll talk about in a second. NC State beats North Carolina. North Carolina implodes every time we think they have a good team. They got to number 10 this year. They're not even close to the top 25 right now. Get your comments in a second. Clemson in a big rivalry, South Carolina. I think there was a fight for this game. They win 16-7, the end of a disappointing season for South Carolina for sure. Liberty remains undefeated though, and in the running, you still got Liberty. I would say Liberty, Tulane, and SMU all will have a shot at that New Year's Day 6 game that goes to the group of 5, the highest ranked team. Liberty is in the top 25. Tulane is in the top 25. SMU is on the cusp and could sneak this out. So congratulations to Jamie Chadwell in his first year at Liberty after coming from Coastal Carolina. Has done a great job there. CA is with us. Good evening and or good afternoon. Good to have you with us again, CA, as always. CA says Ohio State's only way to get. I don't think there's any way. I mean, if Texas. Well, let's look. Since we're going to talk about this now, and I'll get the rest of your comments here in just a second. I'm going to look at the standings. So he says if Texas, FSU, and Alabama lose, that leaves Georgia, Michigan, Washington. No, they wouldn't get in. Oregon's going to, well, no, you're going to say Washington's going to win, right? So Georgia, Michigan, Washington. So that means Florida State, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. Yeah, I guess there's a path back. I mean, they didn't get to, they don't play in their conference championship game. So, I mean, I have to count that. And I picked them to be there, so. Nick Bodkin's with us tonight. Guys on the show Monday night don't agree with me that Florida State should get in if they win. Nick, there is no way a 13-0 major conference champion can be left out. If they were to be and they've never, and the committees change year to year. The committee has never taken a one-loss team over an undefeated major conference championship team, ever. Never. They've never taken a 2-loss team over a 1-loss team in the same situation. It's not going to happen. You cannot penalize Florida State. I don't care if they win 2-0 against Louisville on Saturday or whenever they play. We'll look at the dates and times of these games. Nick, you're absolutely right. The rest of the guys are nuts. There's no way they'll leave this team out. They can't. What about Alabama? Iowa still. Oh, my God. I mean, they still stayed under. You're right. It goes down every week. 24.5. Well, you can count on this, Nick. It's going to be higher this week. But I can't bet the over this week either because I can't be sure I will score anything against Michigan. How awful is it? Let's look at this new poll. Where am I here? Let's look at the playoff ranking, shall we? Georgia stays at number 1. Michigan moves up 1 to number 2. Washington up 1. Florida State up 1. Oregon up 1. Oh, I was wrong. I had Oregon. You're right. I had Ohio State at 5. Oregon did move ahead of them, but look at the whole Oregon thing. They win, they're in. Not at the expense of Florida State, though, right? Washington's out in that case. Bama wins. Bama's likely in, or are they? I can't drop Bama out. I can't put Bama in. Maybe that's what you were talking about, Rick. I can't put Bama or Texas in over an undefeated major conference champion. I'm sorry. You can downplay the ACC all you want, but as long as it's a Power 5 conference, they get the benefit of the doubt, just like every other Power Conference champion who's been undefeated has gotten up until now. I don't believe in the history of the 4-team playoff that a major conference, a Power 5 team undefeated, has ever not gotten into playoff. They have never put a one-loss team over them. And you're certainly not moving Ohio State up there when they didn't even get to their conference championship game. Right? So you got 6 teams alive, right? Maybe, I guess you're going to count Ohio State. We'll still say 7. Oh, we got to say 8. We say 8 if it's for counting Ohio State, which I guess we have to. Based on CA's scenario, I guess they could get in at that point. But I'd be more likely to take. I mean, what's the scenarios? Again, Alabama's got to lose. Florida State's got to lose. I still can't. I cannot. I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think we've had teams that lost their conference championship get in. I don't think we've ever had an instance, and if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, but I don't think we've ever had an instance of a team who did not even play in their conference championship making it to the playoff. Elsewhere, where it doesn't matter anymore except for positioning for near 6 bowl games and such. Missouri, Penn State round out the top 10. These teams have been all pretty close for the last 2 months. Ole Miss, Oklahoma are at 11 and 12. LSU, they all move up 1 spot. LSU moves up to 13. Louisville dropped 4 spots to 14. Arizona stays in that 15 spot. Arizona is probably right now better than Louisville, better than Oklahoma, better than Ole Miss, maybe better than Penn State. Iowa comes in at 16, 10 and 2. Not a bad job by Kirk Ferentz. I mean, again, this is a classic Iowa team. Great defense, great special teams, horrible offense. They might better go to the wing tee or the wishbone. Notre Dame at 9 and 3. Look at a lot of guys keep asking, is Marcus Freeman going to keep his job? Yes, he is. 9 and 3. That's not awful. You know, God, there's no patience anywhere anymore. This guy's learning on the job. He's done a really good job, except for a couple of instances, a couple of brain cramps in the Ohio State game. Not a good loss. Team ready to play against Clemson. But let's give him the benefit of doubt. I think Notre Dame has fared fairly well the last couple of years. Notre Dame is not somebody you're going to say, oh, they got to be undefeated every year. It's Notre Dame. So what? Oklahoma State, 9 and 3. They're still at 18. North Carolina State, Oregon State, Tennessee, Tulane. You know, Tulane, what if, man? If they're undefeated, I'd be interested to see where Tulane would be if they had not lost on the road to Ole Miss without their starting quarterback. Be interested to see where they would be ranked going into this championship weekend. Clemson at 8-4. Liberty, as I said, 12-0. Congratulations to them. They continue that undefeated season under first-year coach Jamie Chadwell. Still fighting for that New Year's Day bowl berth in Kansas State. Will be your 25th team. What do we got here? I don't know if we got anything. Nick's got something. Yeah, you said that. Well, what is the over/under? Now I need to know what the over/under is this weekend. Oh, let's see. Where is that game? The over-under is 35.5. So question is, are you expecting Michigan gets 36 points? Probably, right? Tulane. Good evening, Chad Collins. Good to have you with us. Tulane could have been undefeated, except for that. Again, they played well in that loss to Ole Miss without Pratt, their starting quarterback, their leader. It would have been interesting to see what Tulane would have been in these rankings if they'd stayed undefeated. Iowa for third team, 0.5. That's not true, is it? Unless we're playing Canadian football, they can't get one. Great to have you with us, Chad. We always are happy. Listen, please, if you haven't, like and share TGI Sports Talk. Invite your friends, share the show. We love having new people join in. Any comments you have, I don't know who you're a fan of, Chad. I like to know who guys are rooting for. And Nick, by the way, great job. I know that I've seen some of your college stuff, and I've talked up Missouri a lot this year. I know you have, and I think you're a quasi Missouri fan, if I remember. I'm not positive. Well, what a great season out of the Missouri Tigers this year. Nothing to be ashamed of. You got a loss to Georgia, and listen, that team, watch out. This team could be on the come. Oh, what do you got? Gotcha, I forgot. Didn't know it. Yeah, they did lose. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what I said. If Tulane, I'm a little shocked Tulane's back where they are. Again, the AAC's down a bit this year with the loss of Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. But SMU played well this year. UTSA, again, their records outside of the conference are not what they've been the last few years. So I think that hurts. I think all of that hurt Tulane this year. It would have been very interesting to see an undefeated team this year. It's true. Is it true? Honestly, God, they're 0.5 for each half. That's awesome. I might have to bet my entire 401k on. No, I can't do that. Oh my God, it's too funny. I thought you were Missouri and Iowa. Okay. Well, great job. Congratulations to your Mizzou team because they played really, really good football this year. They got an exciting young coach and exciting offense. Defense probably was their Achilles heel this year, but maybe there's better things on the horizon here. The SEC is going to be tough. Notre Dame fan for Chad, Tar Heel fan, SEC Titans fan. Oh, in the NFL, you're a Titans fan, I take it. So Notre Dame and Chad Collins, I'll call you out a little bit, not call you out, but call on you. So again, we've had a lot of discussion throughout this year about Marcus Freeman and his situation, and a lot of talk about Sam Hartman as well. I think Sam Hartman, people are disappointed in Sam Hartman. I think you saw who Sam Hartman is. He's a good college quarterback. He signed a lot of records at Wake Forest because of the offense that they ran. A little bit different situation, obviously, here at Notre Dame. But my question is more, I guess you can tell me if you're disappointed in Sam Hartman, but I also want to know, are you unhappy with the job Marcus Freeman's done in 2 years? I'm not. He righted the ship of what could have been a disastrous season last year, got him to a decent bowl game. Finished, I think, 9-4, right? He's 9-3 this year. It's not, look at that. This isn't Jerry Faust bad. This isn't Charlie Weiss bad. You've been through some bad coaches there before, Kelly. This isn't Bob Davies bad. This is a coach who's young and learning on the job. And I think he's going to get better, and this team's going to get better. I really do. So I'd love to get your opinion, Chad. Nick says Mizzou should beat LSU. If this was next year, Mizzou in the playoff. If this was next year. So are we saying that next year? Hang on one second. Let's get to, I don't even know if I pulled up my standings today because I didn't, but I'm going to right now. Bear with me a second. So the SEC, they play in the same division as Georgia, if I'm not mistaken. They do. So next year, you're going to tell me that Georgia Bulldogs will finish second. Actually, are they playing without, if I'm not mistaken, they're playing without divisions next year, right? I know the Big Ten is. I think the SEC as well. So that means you've got them finishing either first or second ahead of either Alabama or Georgia, and certainly ahead of the LSUs, who they beat this year. They should have beat. Correct. Keep the coach. I like him. I think he's done pretty well at Notre Dame. Thank you. I think, listen, I think he's done a really good job. And, we judge these guys too harshly, man, too quickly. Top 12 teams get into the playoff. Oh, you mean the playoff? I'm sorry. I thought you meant the SEC playoffs. Yeah. Well, if this was next year, which I'd be a year closer to retirement, so I wish it was, but then I'd be a year older. So I'm really I'm really not sure. So if this was next year, you would have your 6 automatic bids would be, well, even if it's 5, let's just say it's 5. Because the Pac, we count the Pac, well, we'll count the Pac-12 in because they're not anywhere. We got to count the 6. If this was next year, it would be Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Texas. Let's just assume they win. Everything wins out. Everything plays out like it should, right? And Tulane. Let's say Tulane beats SMU for the sake of argument. Again, I'm assuming some other things here. There's your 6. And it really doesn't matter because the loser of those games are probably getting in as well. The only team maybe that could win this weekend that wouldn't get in would be Oklahoma State. No, Oklahoma State would get in. I'm sorry, lose. Oklahoma State wouldn't get in. Right. So that's your 6. After that, you're going to have Oregon. You're going to have Ohio State. You're going to have Bama. You're going to have Missouri at 10. Penn State and Mississippi. Those would be your 12 teams in the playoff next year. Now, for the John DeLons of the world who think this is a participation trophy thing, no. First of all, my plan, not my plan, Basement Bob. So don't get on your mom's computer and start sending me threatening emails. This plan, the 16-team plan, where you'd let all the conference champions in and then have 6 wild cards or at-larges, would be a true championship playoff. All champions and the next 6 best teams. We don't have that. But John keeps telling me, John DeLon, who is not here with us to defend himself, he'll probably show up at 7 or 8:31. You've only got, in this scenario, John, 3 2-loss teams. You told me we'd have a bunch of 3-loss teams. Well, it's impossible because none of those teams are playing this weekend. So it's impossible to have a 3-loss team in what would have been next year's 12-team playoff. This would have been a great year for the 12-team playoff, in my mind. Because all those teams, including Tulane, would have a chance. And again, very similar to the basketball tournament. I know the big upsets, at the end of the day, the chalk will probably play out. Early on, is where you want to look for upsets. Then he woke up and found out he was dreaming. What? What? What I missed? I got to get to these comments faster so I know what the hell we're talking about. I think 12 is too much. I like 8. Do you like 8? Why? I like the 12. I mean, in the 8 teams scenario, well, you're probably not going to give a bye or an automatic bid to the group of 6 team or group of 5 teams, which I think would stink. Notre Dame has less of a chance. So that's why I don't think they're going to go. I still think, again, 8's fine. I mean, where would the arguments? There's always going to be arguments. This year, I mean, maybe there would be none. But then these conference championships games, which now mean a ton. The conference championships games, a lot of times for the last bunch of years, have really been meaningless, except for a handful of cases. Maybe positioning in the 4 team playoff. The conference championships mean everything this year. They won't mean as much. I understand that in a 12-team playoff and they would mean more than an 18 playoff. So I'll give you that, Nick. Let's see something here. In the championship games that are meaningful, in this 12-team play, if the 12-team playoff were played this year, the Oregon State matchup would be meaningless other than a bye, most likely. Remember, bye, and that's not unimportant, by the way. The Oklahoma State-Texas game still would be important. It wouldn't be as important to Texas because they'd be in either way. Georgia-Alabama wouldn't matter, again, except for a bye. Same thing with Texas. Tulane and SMU would still matter. Michigan-Iowa means something to Iowa, but they can't win. And Florida State, Louisville, it still would mean something. Louisville's got something to play for, is they'd have an automatic bid, which they won't have now. So, I mean, you could have Oklahoma State. You could have Louisville crashing the party next year. If this were next year, you could have Tulane or SMU would be in. You could have SMU crashing the party, but Tulane's not in this year. Iowa or Louisville. Iowa would be the least likely of those. In an 8-team scenario, obviously the championship games would probably retain a little bit more meaning, I guess. But I see Mizzou winning the SEC. Rick, you got to be careful because Georgia's been on a great run. You know, Georgia wasn't this good not that long ago. Kirby Smart is taking that team to the Alabama level, right? Other than Nick Saban, recently, these schools don't stay at the top for very long. At the very top, right? See Dabo Swinney, that was a long run in today's NCAA. You're not getting runs like Bear Bryant and Woody Hayes and John McKay and Bo Schembechler had for years. I mean, Georgia had a nice program under Vince Dooley. How many championships did they win? 1? So, again, you got to be careful. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Georgia. It's a great program. Mark Richt had some great years there without getting them over the top. I mean, just because you don't win doesn't mean you're not a good coach or not a good program. Just because you don't win the final championship. But Missouri's not that far away from winning this year. 2 losses in conference, right? Anyway, just saying. Be careful. I know what happens because you see this. We're going to get into the NFL, but it doesn't last forever. And teams that I mocked for 20 years, are better than me now, including the hapless Jets are better than me. We won't get into that conversation. We'll get into that Sunday, I guess. But anyway, it's going to be a very interesting situation just to see how that plays out. The Heiman, if you care about that thing, well, let's look at the games this weekend right now. Let's look at check out when they post Georgia's roster and the Classic kids. Listen, I'm not saying, Rick, understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying Georgia won't be good next year. I'm not saying Georgia won't be good the year after that. But if you think Georgia's going on a run for 20 years, it doesn't happen anymore. Maybe it will. I hope it does for your sake and their sake. I like Kirby Smart. And I think it's good for football. Good for college football. But everything they do, just like the NFL, everything the NCAA does is to level the playing field. NIL and transfer portals are designed to help level the playing field. And it's done that, except at the very top. That doesn't mean it won't catch up to the top at some point. And I'm not sitting here telling you that it will. But it's not like, and again, Kirby Smart is not Mark Richt. He's probably Georgia's. I don't think there's any, even in the short time that he's been there, relatively short time he's been there. He's the greatest coach in Georgia history. Vince Dooley was that before, correct? I mean, again, this was a really good football program. It wasn't a storied program like Alabama. I'm sorry, like Alabama. I think you're going to see, things are going to get tougher in the SEC. It's going to get tougher to repeat. And I'm sitting here saying somebody who last year thought Georgia would repeat. And I think they'll three-peat. I said at the beginning of the year, and I still think they'll three-peat. As hard as that is, they've gotten better as this year's gone on. This is not as good a football team as it was last year. And that team last year was not as good as it was 2 years ago. So we have no way to know how good they're going to be next year or the year after. Right? I mean, if Kirby forgets how to coach, Texas A&M has had the top four recruiting class since Jimbo got there. And I don't mean that as a shot at Kirby Smith or Kirby Smart, by the way. Did I say Kirby Smith before? Who is Kirby Smith? Let's look at the championship games real quick, and then I want to look at some coaching news. Get your guys' comments on some things, and maybe some other news around college football. We kick it off Friday night, 7:00. Liberty and New Mexico State, Conference USA. I like Liberty. I want to see Liberty get to 13-0. I think it'd be a great story. Great. Again, Jamie Chadwell's a really good coach. He's not going to be at Liberty very long. So I think New Mexico State, by the way, got a really good team. Just beat Auburn 2 weeks ago, and Auburn showed you Auburn's made some strides this year under Hugh Freeze, I think. And Hugh Freeze will get that team competitive in the SEC again, I think. Hugh Freeze is a very underrated coach. Also, probably the best game of obviously Friday night, not probably, one of the best games of the weekend. The rematch of Oregon and Washington, excuse me. As I mentioned before, this game's in Vegas. This is 8 o'clock on ABC. The other game's on CBS Sports Network. Well, Oregon's a 9.5-point favorite. I will be betting Washington all day and all night. Maybe they don't win this game. I don't see them getting blown out of this game, though. I really don't. And I really ought to get my other banner up here. Hold on. There we go. All the conference championship games. I don't see Washington getting blown out of this game. Maybe I should just sit back and bet the over. I don't know. But, Bo Nix, I think it's down to Bo Nix. And a couple of weeks ago, I would have said this was Bo Nix and Michael Penix also playing for the Heisman. I think that is now Jalen Daniels and Bo Nix. The only problem with Jalen Daniels' candidacy is he does not have another showcase. The other two guys do. I think this is a 3-horse race. I think those are the 3 guys that will get invited unless they decide not to invite the third quarterback and invite a Brock Bowers or Marvin Harrison or somebody. But I'm going to tell you right now, too, by the way, Marvin Harrison is the best player in college football. You didn't get to see it because of the quarterback situation at Ohio State and some other factors. There's going to be a bunch. I said this before, and I've gotten lambasted a few times. I'm not crazy about this quarterback class. I also said that about the quarterback class when Zach Wilson and Mac Jones and Trey Lance and all these guys came out and guys were trading up like crazy. I'm not crazy about this quarterback draft. There's going to be a bunch of guys who take quarterbacks and pass on Marvin Harrison that are going to be very unhappy that they did so. Just remember where you heard that first. Saturday at noon. You got games all day, big games all day. Texas and Oklahoma at Arlington at Jerry Jones Someday Memorial Stadium. That's rude. Texas is a 15.5-point favorite here. Oklahoma State, before the UCF game, I would have given them a chance here, but I think Texas really knows that they need to put on a good performance here to eliminate any kind of doubt if it comes down to them and Alabama standing all alone. I think they need to remove all doubt here and really have a convincing victory. I'm going to take Texas minus the 15. What we got here? Rich probably think I'm berating his team. I'm really not. CA Manning is staying at Texas. I would think he would. You look at Cam Ewers may move on. I don't know. And by the way, he says that now, but there's a lot of time still to come where he could move on. I think I've said all along I thought he'd stay at Texas. Of course, I thought they were redshirting him, which maybe they can still do. The rules are just so archaic now. Anyway, I like Texas in this game. That'll be fun at noon. Then at 4 o'clock, you got the SEC game, which I think is probably the second best matchup of the weekend, or maybe the best, depending on how you want to look at it. I'm for sure for Rick, it's the best matchup. And I wouldn't argue with either, to be honest with you. Dead off of there. Obviously, they didn't play during the regular season. Both teams undefeated in the SEC. Both teams, in my mind, Carson, both teams and both quarterbacks have gotten tremendously better since early in the season. Georgia, has been knocked for not blowing teams out early. Even let Georgia Tech hang around this last weekend, but so what? Again, like I say with Washington, as the fat bastard used to say, and can't figure out who that is, let me know. I'll let you know. The fat bastard used to say, you are what your record says you are. They're 12-0. Alabama, a lot of us, including me, said this team was going to be 7-4. What did we know? I guess 7-5, 8-4, 7-5. That's where they were heading after the South Florida game. After losing to Texas. This is a much better team. Milroe, Milroe and Beck both, if this season was going a few more weeks, might have got themselves into the Heisman talk at a little bit higher clip. This is going to be a good matchup. Right now, Georgia's 5.5. At this game's where it's going to be at the Mercedes-Benz Bowl in Atlanta. I'm going to have to take Georgia because I've said I thought they'd three-peat. I'm not sure if I'll bet this game. If it comes down to 5, even 4.5, I'm definitely all over Georgia. But I'm either betting Georgia or I'm not betting the game. I think it's going to be a really good game, though, but I think Georgia will win this by a touchdown, at least. If it's more than that, it's going to be because of a late score, meaningless score. Tulane, 3.5-point favorite over SMU in the American Conference. That game's going to be at Ullman Stadium in New Orleans. Basically a home game for Tulane. And I got to like Tulane -3.5 because of it. Both these teams undefeated in the American. As I said, Tulane 11-1. That only blemish, a very respectable loss without their starting quarterback to a really good Ole Miss team. This spread is a gift. I think 3.5. That's not taking anything away from SMU. They played really well. But Tulane had to play a bunch of games without their best quarterback. So I'll take Tulane in this game. Iowa, we've talked a little bit about this game. Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Number 2 Michigan against number 16 Iowa. Michigan a 21.5-point favorite. The over-under is 35. And our information from Nick Bodkins from Let's Talk Sports is that Iowa is a 0.5. The over-under for Iowa in each half is 0.5. Jesus, I might have to bet it. I mean, get a safety. Listen, Michigan should win this game for fun. Will they cover the 21.5? I don't know. Iowa's defense is okay. This game could very well be like 24-3. So if you bet the 21.5, you lose by a half. Michigan's done a great job. Jim Harbaugh is back on a sideline this week, whether you like it or not. He's back, and he'll be on a sideline for any playoff unless something more happens, which I don't know how they can do that now. If they were going to suspend him for the entire season, they should have done that. There's no indication that that's going to happen. And in Florida, the last game at ABC, 8:00, number 14 Louisville at number 4 Florida State. Florida State's 2.5 here. Tempting to take Louisville. I like Florida State. I think the team is resilient. I think the coach has got this team motivated. The defense is really good. I've got a rooting interest on the defensive side with Versay, who played here at Albany State his first couple of seasons before he transferred to Florida State. I might bet Florida State -2.5. We'll see how it goes with some of the other games that day. Maybe. But let's see what other comments we might have here from Jason Patterson. Jason might be a new viewer. Good to have you with us. It will come down to how many mistakes Milroe makes. Probably a good call, Jason, because now Milroe's played much better, but he's probably going to be more prone to turnovers still than Carson Beck. Carson Beck has taken much better care of the football, I think, on the whole this season, if you want to look at the season on a whole. I'm going to tell you right now that I think right now today, I think Milroe might be the better quarterback than Carson Beck. But I'm still going to take Georgia in this game. And you're right. That Georgia defense might have a big turnover on Milroe late in the game that really turns the tide here. But I think, again, I like Georgia. I've said I'd like Georgia to win their 3rd in a row. If I bet this game, it'll be Georgia minus whatever it is. I'd like to see it drop a half point anyway, because I think it'll be kind of close. But I'm hoping it can be a touchdown. But if I don't like that, I won't bet it. I won't bet Alabama. Michigan. What do you got here? Michigan will, hose these guys. I think you meant, or house these guys. I guess either one of them works. And fall flat in the playoff again. It's very interesting. Since you mentioned that, and again, they've done it 2 years in a row now. So if things play out as we think, let's just say Georgia wins, Michigan wins, Washington wins, Florida State wins. To me, it's pretty simple. You can't drop Florida State. That's going to bring Michigan against Washington in the semi. I've loved what Coach DeBoer has done at Washington. I think Michael Penix is a really good college quarterback. I don't think he's going to excel on the next level. That's not a knock on him. It's great. There's been a lot of great college quarterbacks who have not excelled at the next level. This could be the year Michigan breaks through, though, Jason. It's possible. It's possible. This team has really been galvanized and rallied around their coach and their program. Sherrod Moore has done a great job. Don't be shocked to see him get one of the jobs we talk about here in a little while, unless he gets the Michigan job because Coach Harbaugh decides to spend time with the kids in the NFL. So that'd be your matchup: Georgia, Florida State, Michigan, and Washington. Because I wouldn't think if all those undefeated teams stay undefeated this weekend, which is entirely possible, I don't see the order changing at all. I mean, possibly Michigan and Washington could flip-flop depending on the results of those games. If Washington was really impressive. I would also think if Washington loses to Oregon, Michigan's going to get Oregon. That might be a bigger test for them than Washington. I would expect Oregon, if they win, to jump over Florida State and get into the 3 spot, if not the 2 spot. But either way, it doesn't matter. They're not going to number 1. I would see, no matter what happens in the Pac-12 game, I would think Georgia's going to get the winner of the Pac-12 game. I'm sorry, Michigan's going to get the winner of the Pac-12 game. Chad back. What do you got here, Chad? I remember you saying you're not that fond of this quarterback class on SportsScope. Flipping over there to on Robert's show, SportsScope. Yes, I have said I'm not enamored with this class. I just am not. I think the best quarterback on the next level, and again, they're all great college quarterbacks. Penix, great college quarterback. Caleb Williams, great college quarterback. Right down on Jaden Daniels, great college quarterback. I'm not in love with any of these guys. I'm not in love with. You've seen a lot of guys. I'm surprised C.J. Stroud has been the best rookie quarterback this year. But I'm not surprised that Bryce Young's struggles. I'm not surprised that Trey Lance has struggled and Zach Wilson has struggled these last couple of drafts. I think Bo Nix probably has the best shot of them, but I think Bo Nix might very well be Mac Jones. It's such a different game. You can't just throw the ball, where you can just throw the ball to guys who are great athletes who jump up and get it in college, which Mac Jones did consistently with Devontae Smith and Waddle and others. You can't get away with that in the NFL. So you're right, Chad. I've said that a couple of times on Robert Butler's show. And check that out. Check out SportsScope. You don't have to go till 8:30. I'll probably be on with Robert soon, I would think, myself. Good. Oh, so Jason's a Razorback fan, so a good question for you. Oh, so the Razorbacks finally made the news and pull off the craziest story line that only Vince McMahon could have dreamed up. And I know where you're going with this. I brought it up earlier in the show. And I guess we'll start talking about some coaches. We'll start with an offensive coordinator and the fact that Bobby Petrino, whose tenure at Arkansas was so spectacularly successful and lacking any drama, has for some reason been brought back by the program, the university, to coach their offense. So my question for you, Jason, is this the AD? Is this Sam Pittman, who, again, got a reprieve himself this year? And I'd love to know your opinion of Coach Pittman. I think he's done a great job this year, notwithstanding. It was a tough year for Arkansas. But I think he did a pretty good job righting the ship for the Razorbacks. So two things. Obviously, I think I know your opinion on Petrino coming back. I'd love to know your opinion on Coach Pittman and him returning. I think he deserves one more shot myself. Yeah. Chad, quarterbacks and the lines are tough to fix in the tough to find. Tough to fix and to find for NFL. I got you. Quarterbacks and linemen. Well, there's a lot of bad NFL lines. There's a lot of bad NFL quarterbacks, and I'm not saying these kids won't get drafted high, and I won't say they won't get a lot of money, and I won't say they won't play, but I just don't think they're going to be that good. Now, one of them is going to break out, and they're not all going to be bad. I'm talking about the class overall. I think is not that good. Rare commodities for sure on every level. Can't just be pretty. Got to have Purdy. Listen, well, again, Brock Purdy's a great example of what I'm talking about, too. Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. So I'm not knocking. I'm not even including him as part of the quarterback class from 2 years ago, CA, because he was an afterthought. Right? When I talk about the quarterback classes, I'm talking about the guys going in the first round, maybe even in the second round. And I still say of last year's class, it'll still be Will Levis will be the best. Thumbs up to you too, buddy. I'm going to wait on Jason's reply here. They wrote no motorcycles. He wrote no motorcycles into his. No motorcycles and no, young, what do you call those guys? Trainers. No young trainers. No young female trainers allowed near Coach Petrino at any time. The defensive hires saved his goose in the offseason. They turned the defense around, and it earned him another year, but the lame duck ending of the season forced his hand to make a hire that will charge the fan base to sell more tickets. Well, it will charge the fan base. How it charges them remains to be seen, Jason. So you're telling me that this was Sam Pittman's hire? I don't even think he did that good a job as offensive coordinator at Texas A&M this year. Forget about all the problems he had at Arkansas before that. Bobby Petrino's got to have pictures of everybody in college football because he keeps getting jobs. Talk about a bad act, man. Bad act. Price is around $24 million for $2 million for a good college quarterback. That's NIL money. Yes, you're talking about two play in college. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure that's about where Bo Nix and Michael Penix likely are, and Caleb Williams could be more. Remember, I don't think he'll be back now because of the ending of this SEC season or USC season. But there was talk early in the year that Caleb Williams would come back, and he might make more money than he made in the NFL. I hate it, but it's a fact of life. Let's look at some of the college situations. We got to look at some of the coaching situations. We've already talked about some of them. I'm expecting a few more. Swing around college football. Is that what we're doing here? New Year's Day, I'd already talked about the group of five. I want to talk about coaches, but I don't know where I put my. Well, I guess we'll just leave this up. We'll swing around the world of college football. Coaches. Here's the jobs that are open at the moment. We still could have more changes, obviously. Duke, we know, is open because Coach Mike Elko bolted for the, or is expected, I guess, depending on when this, where this listing that I came up with was posted. He'll be taking Texas A&M job. Probably offered to two coaches before him, but he knows the landscape there. He was a defensive coordinator there. For Duke, I don't know where Duke's going to be looking. Some talk about potentially Troy Calhoun from Air Force being interested in the Duke job. I think the Duke's job is much better than it may have been at any time in the past. Partly because of what Mike Elko was able to accomplish there. This year might have been a really special year there if they hadn't had the injuries to Leonard and some other key players. Houston out. Dana Holgerson, who was also coached at West Virginia. Some of the candidates to replace him: Jeff Traylor, who you're going to hear a lot of from Texas San Antonio. Another guy you're going to hear a lot about for some of these jobs that are open, Willie Fritz from Tulane. Mississippi State, Zach Arnett is out. Is this a good job, man? Oregon State, Indiana got to be better jobs than this. Some of the candidates for this job are going to be, a lot of the guys we probably just talked about. Lance Leopold, you're going to hear his name a lot. He's not leaving Kansas for Mississippi State, I don't think. Especially with the Big 12, probably going to get more winnable for him with a good base coming back. I don't think he's jumping at Mississippi State. Willie Fritz will come up here. John Summerall will come up a lot, the Troy coach. We talked about Jamie Chadwell. This could be a place for Jamie Chadwell to get his feet into a Power 5 conference. So we'll see how that goes. Next job open, San Diego State. Brady Hoke retires. All you Michigan fans remember the great job he did there, but he actually did very well at San Diego State. I believe that they have narrowed their coach down to, I can't remember who it was now. Damn it. Again, you're going to get the same names coming up for all these jobs, so I'm not even going to go into it, I guess. Boise State, Andy Avalos. I think Andy Avalos, by the way, really got a bum deal here. He did a good job at Boise State. Boise State was in the Mountain West hunt for a good part of this year. They got off to a poor start, but I think he did a pretty good job in the couple years that he was there. This year may have been a bit of a disappointment. They expect to jump back into the higher echelon of college football, and it didn't happen. So that's that. What do you got here, Jason? No, I don't think this was Sam's in Sam's ballpark of thought. Someone handpicked this hire, and Sam handed the keys over to the AD. Well, he didn't have much choice, probably, right? As you said, I think in your other post, Jason, that he was trying to save his job. I'm sure he's not looking forward to going back and becoming an offensive line coach again somewhere right away. So Sam Pittman will now live with Bobby Petrino. Ought to be interesting in Arkansas, Fayetteville next year. Oregon State, as we know, they just lost Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. Now the question becomes, how good a job is this? How good a job is the Washington State job if that becomes open, which is rumored that it might because of their horrible second half here. With the Pac-12 broken up, we still don't know what's going on with Oregon State and Washington. I mean, next year, I don't think these schools know what they'll be doing next year. They could piece together some kind of schedule somehow. I mean, there's still lawsuits going over too. Who's in control of the Pac-12 and the coffers there, and the brand and the rights to a lot of things. One judge had already ruled in favor of Oregon State and Washington State. Another judge just ruled favorably on a rebuttal that Washington had put in. They're going to want to take money when they go to these schools that are abandoning Oregon State and Washington State. So I really believe that they're going to have to. I would like to have seen the Pac-12 continue, bring a couple of the best teams from the Mountain West, bring a couple teams maybe from the American. But it's looking more and more to me like these teams are just going to have to make the jump to the Mountain West, or they're not going to have a season next year. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Indiana, Tom Allen fired, as I mentioned pretty much all year that he would. He's done a great job. He did a great job for a couple of years. 2019, he had a good year. The COVID year, he had a really good year, finished 12th in the country. But since then, it's been all downhill. The offense has been terrible. Sharon Moore, again, he'll be another name that comes up for a lot of these jobs. You're not getting the Lance Leopolds to Indiana, so to get that out of your head, or the Oregon States. Interesting name that's come up the last few days in Indiana is John Gruden, who has ties to Indiana somehow. He wants to get back into coaching. Probably his best path to coaching again is going to be on a college level, I would think. And it's going to be very interesting. This isn't a great job. Historically, this has not been a great job, as they've been at the bottom of the pack or the Big Ten for decades, except for a handful of seasons. We'll see what happens there. Dino Babers was fired, as we know, at Syracuse. They have a new head coach in Georgia's defensive back coach, I believe. Can't find my note here. Yeah, I got the note and I don't have his name written down, but he has got the job and they filled that job. Middle Tennessee is also looking for a coach. New Mexico, as I've been talking about for 2 years, has finally fired Danny Gonzalez. UTEP fires Dana Dimmel. Terry Bowden fired at UML. And, those are jobs where you're going to see some of the assistant coaches fill these positions. San Diego State was Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator at Colorado, who was demoted by Deion Sanders early in the year. Fran Brown is the coach that I was trying to think of at Syracuse. Dave Aranda has been given a reprieve, not another reprieve. He's done a pretty good job until this year. He'll stay with Baylor. Have to make some significant changes, most likely it is. Coaching staff. It does look like Chip Kelly will keep his job most likely at UCLA. The win over USC probably helped him, obviously, a lot, I would say, keep his job. And then there's, you got to watch out for the NFL. We don't know who the NFL might try to poach when firing season comes in. We may have a record number of NFL coaches fired this year. So guys like Lincoln Riley, guys like Ryan Day will be thinking about potentially jumping to the NFL. And if they do, wow. There's a couple of really plum jobs open, right? We'll see what happens there. The Lincoln Riley rumors, I'm not so sure. Unless the team says, hey, I'm going to take Caleb Williams. We want you to come and coach him. Maybe that scenario plays out. But that didn't work out so good for the Cardinals, did it? With Kyler Murray and and Cliff Kingsbury. I don't think it worked out so well. What else is going on around the world of college football, guys? I got a few stories I wanted to chat about. Did I? Oh, excuse me. Oh boy, couple transfer portal news. Leonard, the Duke quarterback that we just talked about a minute ago, he's entered the transfer portal. Will Howard from Kansas State entered the transfer portal. All of Michigan State's quarterbacks have entered the transfer portal. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. It CA brought up earlier. Matt Rule had talked about quarterbacks in the portal costing $1 to $2 million. So CA, there's your confirmation on what it costs there. Spencer Rattler from South Carolina decided to leave for the NFL. Good luck, Spencer. This is a guy I have followed since his junior year in high school, because there used to be a show. I've mentioned this a few times on this, and maybe some of you newer viewers have seen it. It's not on anymore, I don't believe. There was a show. It was on NFL, and then it was on Tubi or something. QB1, which followed the top high school quarterbacks, and it was on. I think there was 3 seasons. I mean, we saw guys like Sam Hartman. We saw guys like Justin Fields. One of the guys we saw on, I think, the last season before COVID, and that's when it stopped airing, was Spencer Rattler. And this was a kid who was getting recruited by all these great colleges. He didn't even make it through his senior year of high school. He was kicked off the team. We still don't know why. There was some kind of criminal charges brought that were kind of vague. I don't think anything ever went to trial. But some of his offers dried up. He did end up going to Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley and played there with Caleb Williams. Started there before Caleb Williams became the starter, and he didn't do very well. He transferred to South Carolina, had his moments, but all in all, I would say that his time in South Carolina was a failure. I don't see this kid. I don't see him getting drafted in the first 3 rounds. So he's not going to make it on the next level, I don't think. So I'm a little surprised. He's been a disappointment pretty much everywhere he's played. What else? That's about all I have right now. Let me look here. I got one more place I want to look for some stuff we can talk about. We talked about Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day, I think, is in trouble. I think Ryan Day is either going to have to make some great sacrifices to his coaching staff, to his salary, to something to be able to stay at Ohio State. He may look to jump to the NFL now. He's almost right where Jim Harbaugh was. Not quite the depths, because Harbaugh had a really bad season at Michigan. But remember, he wasn't beating Ohio State, which was more important, than the fact he went 3-6 or whatever. The year he had to make all these adjustments to keep his job. So I think it's possible Ryan Day's in a very similar situation right now. Interesting to see what happens. We talked about some of the scenarios in the college football playoff race. Again, I will end the show the way I began it, basically. Florida State cannot be cheated out of a bid if they finish 13-0, just because Jordan Travis, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, is not going to play for them any longer. If they struggle against Louisville and they win the game, they've got to be in the playoff. You cannot put a one-loss champion in over an undefeated champion in my mind, and certainly not a one-loss conference loser. Just saying. We'll see whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. With that, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. It's been a really good show tonight. I want to thank everybody who's tuned in. Rick, certainly one of our regulars. Anthony early on. CA, Chad, who joined us, Jason, who joined us tonight. Who else was with us tonight? I hate not catching guys, but now I've screwed up my my comment, so I can't go backwards. But you guys have all been great. Love it. You new guys, tune into our Sunday Stream of Consciousness where we talk about everything in sports. And you guys will run the show, basically. I've got some topics to talk about, but I love to chat with you guys. Couple programming notes. I'm going to need it down just for a minute. We'll be live Friday morning with the Are You Serious show with the Mad New Yorker. We'll debate some of this, the things that we've just talked about probably today will be one of our topics. I'll do my Major League Baseball update on Friday afternoon. Sunday, the Stream of Consciousness. That's where I want you guys to definitely tune in with me. And some programming notes for next week. No college football huddle on Wednesday night because I'll be traveling for work. I will, however, do the show live Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, the spot that it usually replays in on the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku. I'll do it on all of our outlets, 9 o'clock Saturday morning. And there will be no Are You Serious or MLB update next week. We should be back okay for the Sunday Stream of Consciousness. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy championship weekend. Next week we get to talk about all the winners, the debate over whatever happens with the college football playoff, Army, Navy, the high school, and more. Have you a great day.